Since then, thousands of organizations have used the databank to create progressive change. Today, the databank continues to help progressive organizations like AM 950. To have the databank help your organization build capacity and create more change, text change to 612-540-0500 or go to thedatabank.com. The Databank, a quarter century of dedication and hard work for progressive organizations.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Tom Winston. For today, partly sunny with a high 50 degrees. For tonight, clear, low 30. And tomorrow, even better, sunny with a high 55. Nightingale's your cozy, comfortable neighborhood bar and destination restaurant featuring delicious food and drinks. Offerings include the famous Nightingale burger and fries, ginger tamari chicken wings, duck pastrami Reuben. Takeout orders still available. Nightingale, MPLS.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Good morning, and welcome to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. I'm glad you've made the connection and are with us today. I'm Laurie Fitz, your host, and the goal of our show is to explore a wide range of topics that challenge us to see ourselves, our community, and the world around us in ways that get us connected, and perhaps inspired or challenged to do just a bit more because we've made that connection. Today, we're kicking off a series of radio shows that I'm calling You Are Not Crazy, These Are Lies. Gaslighting is at an all-time high. And we talk about gaslighting, but we don't often really go back to what the definition of gaslighting is. And I think it's important. Gaslighting is a form of an emotional manipulation where someone deliberately tries to make another person doubt their own reality, perceptions, and sanity by twisting facts, denying events, and making them question their own memories, often leading to feelings of confusion and insecurity. To deal with gaslighting, one should firmly assert their own reality, document incidents, and seek support from trusted individuals. And this is what the series intends to do. And I have brought trusted individuals, dear friends, and excellent spokespeople when it comes to a variety of issues. And I am looking forward to having them join me for several shows. Joining me today is Alvin Peters, Stacy Dinner-Levin, and Catherine McEnroe. Welcome.
Good morning, Laurie.
Good morning. Good morning, Alvin.
Good morning, Laurie. You're not crazy.
Thank you. Thank you. I needed that. Sometimes I feel it. It just, you go into with so many different things going on and so many events and so many doubting of what just happened. It makes it hard. And you can almost go into a state of catatonia. And I don't want that. I want to be able to face this directly. And I want to work with you all and our audience in facing it directly. So Alvin has practiced law for 40 years in Panama City, Florida, and was the chair of his local Democratic Party for 10 years. Stacy is a Twin Cities playwright. One of her most notable works is the award-winning play Autistic License. Stacy's also an educator with special needs youth in Hennepin County. Catherine is recently retired from her 32 years practicing law, but she is still a lawyer.
That's right.
She spent her first 2 years in her career as a law clerk to a federal judge, then private practice litigator for 18 years. She spent the last 10 years of her career in public service, prosecuting drug, property, and violent crimes for Hennepin County. So today's show, we're going to be exploring a few aspects of Trump's speech to the joint session that he made about 6 weeks after being sworn in. It's part of documenting incidents for me, keeping a record of the specific examples of the gaslighting behavior, including our dates and times of when this happened. And I want to have our first segment be looking at how wokeism is being addressed. Trump stressed that his administration has ended tyranny of DEI programs. He specifically said, our country will be woke no longer. And since retaking office, President Trump has moved to wipe away all remaining aspects of the affirmative action and diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, from federal hiring practices that he's claimed are affirmed discrimination that prevented applicants from being hired on merit. Alvin, you are joining us from Selma, Alabama today. and you're there to be supporting the cross in Selma, Alabama, in the bridge that you are. Tell us about the bridge that you are there for. I've lost my notes here for a minute. And
Thank
tell us
you.
how
Thank
many
you,
times
Lori.
you've come down to Alabama.
Well, actually, greetings.
Pettis Bridge. There we
Well,
go.
I'm live. I'm live
1965.
right now from Montgomery, Alabama, and
Mhm.
was yesterday in Selma, which is about 54 miles down the road. And this is the anniversary of Bloody Sunday. This is the 60th year since John Lewis and other heroes gathered at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, to begin a march down the highway to Montgomery, Alabama, to seek voting rights from the government of Alabama, which was then led by George Wallace. And George Wallace opposed the rights to vote for the Black people of Alabama. There was apparently about 15,000 Black people living in this county around Selma, and only about 300 had passed all of the requirements to register to vote. And so John Lewis led a group that was opposed by the Alabama State Police, and they beat him about the head. And there's famous photographs of the violence that occurred on the Edmund Pettus Bridge that went across the nation through television, and that motivated the American public to demand that the right to vote be secured. And eventually, Lyndon Johnson made a famous speech that he ended up phrasing, "We shall overcome," and passed the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which had a whole series of specific federal requirements to make sure that local jurisdictions, particularly in the portions of the South, did not discriminate in the right to participate in the democratic process. And that particular decision, or that law, was important to the development of Black voting rights across the South, although it was eventually significantly weakened by Justice Roberts in a Shelby decision in 2013. So, where he pronounced that America no longer really had a race problem. So that's the background of the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
Thank you.
And there'll be a commemorative march across the bridge this coming Sunday, tomorrow.
Will you be part of that?
Oh, yes, I'll be a part of it. And I was there yesterday to participate in a number of the commemorative ceremonies, and saw Representative Clyburn was there greeting folks in the Selma community. I saw Senator Coons from Delaware who was there, and I'm sure there will be many more people on Sunday who also think they're not crazy, they know history, and Donald Trump can't take their history away from them.
What are people saying about the place we're in right now, and how DEI is being attacked and how woke is being attacked? What are they saying?
Well, I attended the national NAACP banquet last night, and listened to Mayor Reed, the Black mayor of Montgomery, listened to a number of other Black mayors from Alabama, listened to Terry Sewell, who's a Black woman who's a congresswoman from Alabama, Shamari Figueres, who's just elected through some redistricting litigation, and people are girding for a fight. We also had Yvette Clarke from Brooklyn. She's the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. And from Illinois, we had Congresswoman Robin Kelly. So this group is preparing to litigate, preparing to oppose Donald Trump, and is basically spoiling for a fight. Although the particular wording, of DEI, trying to understand what that really means to folks in Selma and Black folks in Alabama and Black folks across the world, or at least the United States, is still a little bit of a mystery in terms of what it really means.
And in that, you were sharing earlier when we were getting ready for the show, some of the challenges of uniting the very diverse Democratic Party. And it seems like whenever there does seem to be a good term that helps unite, it's the very term that gets turned against us.
And that's basically just part of American history. And American history is largely the history of how we have dealt with slavery and its vestiges. And that history is a challenge for us to even talk about. It's now a part of a number of different state governments, Florida, for example, and now the United States, that essentially oppose any acknowledgement, any concern about Black history and how it ought to inform a creation of a just and democratic community. So Democrats have long had the problem of building a coalition that includes African Americans, and that is used by the Republicans since the Southern Strategy to try to dissuade working class white Americans from participating in the Democratic coalition.
In what ways do you see that we could move forward in creating a more united Democratic Party?
Well, we have a challenge. I think one of the things that President Obama did through Obamacare was address all concerns of Americans. And he did it in a skillful way because it benefited everybody. And one of the things that Donald Trump does is he conflates wokeism, which is really just there's nothing wrong with being aware or being mindful of Black history and being willing to let that history inform your behaviors and your political attitudes. But he conflates that with affirmative action. And he uses that as a way to send a very loud whistle to white Americans that if we do something for Black folks, we're going to take something away from you. And so in that zero-sum game analysis, he has fairly successfully pulled a substantial portion of the white electorate in his direction.
So you've also been the chair of your local Democratic Party for 10 years, and your county voted 75% for Trump. Why do you suppose that happened? Tell me more about Florida and your county that you've been working in.
Well, I'm in the panhandle of Florida, which is probably one of the most conservative places. Congressman Gates abandoned his seat, which is the next door over from my neighborhood. But Florida has long been held by a Republican governor and a Republican legislature. And because of that, the Democrats have essentially been gerrymandered into a minority. And part of the Democratic error way back 30 years ago was to say, well, we recognize the importance of electing Black officials, so we'll help create jurisdictions which are friendly to Black election prospects. But what that did was that essentially played into some Republican hands because the districts were essentially packed full of the Democrats, substantial numbers of Black folks, and those legislative changes have been mirrored across the United States. And so you see very few competitive congressional districts in the United States anymore, about 40. And those are essentially the only swing districts. Florida has a couple of them, but for most part, Florida's congressional districts are safely gerrymandered with Republicans or high numbers of Democrats.
And how can we fight that? Is there a way?
It's like recruiting. If you were in the top 10 last year, you can recruit athletes to come. And if you had an unsuccessful football program, it's hard to recruit. So yes, there needs to be some substantial change in Democratic attitudes about governorships and legislative and local elections so that we don't just have our burst of energy every 4 years at the presidential level. We have to find ways to make a difference in local and state elections, because that creates the playing field.
And with that, I need to take a break. My engineer is nodding at me that it's time for our commercials. But when we come back, we'll continue our conversation. Alvin's going to continue to join us. And in our next segment, we're going to be looking at some of the things that Mr. Trump said about both health and education. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
End-of-life decisions are not easy to make. Hi, I'm Mary T. of Mary T. Hospice Care. It's important to make sure that this difficult time is meaningful and comforting to you and your loved ones. Our hospice team provides an individualized program of physical, emotional, spiritual, and practical care so your loved one is comfortable and not in pain. At Mary T. Hospice, we understand that choosing the right hospice care provider can be overwhelming, but we're here to assist you. Learn more today at marytinc.com.
Hey, Twin Cities, ready to turn your side hustle into a main hustle? Struggling to grow your business or find the capital you need? We've got the solution. Join us for the Capital Readiness Summit, April 10 through 12 at the Wilder Foundation in St. Paul. This two-day event is packed with hands-on workshops and powerful networking opportunities. Meet local investors, connect with national resources, and build relationships that could take you years to find on your own. This is your chance to level up your business and join the thriving small business ecosystem. But don't wait, this event sells out every year. Act now. Grab your ticket today at www.connectupmn.org. Flexible payment options are available. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn for the latest updates and discount codes. Don't miss the Capital Readiness Summit. Your next big move starts here.
Hi, I'm Scott Shamblot from Shamblot Family Dentistry. We're the fear-free, shame-free dental office. If you're having a dental emergency, we'll try and get you in the same day you call, because we don't like to see anyone in pain. And we'll help you get through every appointment in the most pain-free way possible. As my daughter Rachel says,
if you don't see my dad, please see another dentist. Take care of your teeth because they're the only ones you get.
Shamblot Family Dentistry in Hopkins and St. Paul. Find them online at shamblotfamilydentistry.com or call 1-800-FIX-MY-TEETH.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950 for Snap Construction again. Does your home feel colder than it should with the furnace constantly running? Or do certain rooms always feel colder than the rest of the house? Those are signs the attic in your home may need an insulation upgrade. Snap Construction can help by providing a free energy audit for your home's insulation. The average cost of getting new insulation can cost much less than a new furnace. Plus, Snap Construction is a BPI certified installer. That means if you use Snap for your next insulation project, you qualify for up to $650 in total rebates from your energy provider. After my free inspection, my insulation upgrade was completed within a few weeks and the rebate check was in the mail. Snap to it and reduce your heating bill this winter with Snap Construction. Call 612-333-SNAP. That's 612-333-SNAP for your free energy audit when you mention AM 950. Snap Construction, arguably the most well-reviewed exterior contractor and insulation company in the metro. You may not think of it, but winter is a great time to take care of those exterior home projects. This is Chad, owner of AM 950 for Snap Construction. Most people wait until the warmer months for their exterior home projects, but labor costs are actually lowest in the winter. And that's true for the contractor I trust, Snap Construction. Arguably the most well-reviewed exterior contractor and insulation contractor in the metro. Are you noticing ice dams on your house, or is your furnace constantly running and you're still not comfortable? In addition to your exterior home projects, winter is also a great time to get your insulation checked with a free energy audit from Snap Construction. The average cost to upgrade your insulation is oftentimes less than a new furnace. Plus, there are rebates available from your energy provider when you upgrade your insulation. As always, Snap Construction stands by their work with a lifetime craftsmanship warranty. So don't wait for prices to rise in the warmer months. Get a free estimate now by calling 612-333-SNAP, 612-333-SNAP, or go to snapconstruction.com.
Welcome back to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. I'm Lori Fitz, your host, and today we are kicking off a series of radio shows that I'm calling You're Not Crazy, These Are Lies. Gaslighting, all-time high. But we don't often think or pause to think about what gaslighting really is. So gaslighting is a manipulative tactic where someone tries to make another person question their own sanity by twisting facts and denying reality. It works by denying things that they've said, claiming the other person is misremembering, or attributing their own negative behaviors to the other person. So signs of gaslighting are feeling constantly criticized or blamed. Democratic Party is getting quite a bit of blame these days. Doubting your own thoughts or feelings, feeling like you're going crazy, and being told you're overreactive or being too sensitive. So all these things are happening to the Democratic Party and to individuals in the Democratic Party, and we're trying to make sense of it. One of the ways they suggest in handling feeling crazy or feeling like you're being gaslit is to seek support from trusted individuals. And that's exactly what I've done. Joining me is Alvin Peters, Stacy Dinner-Levin, and Catherine McEnroe. Welcome to you all.
Thanks, Lori.
Yeah,
Glad to be here.
we're so glad that you are. So our friend Stacy is going to be my lead in this section.
Okay.
And we're going to be talking about some of the things that that Trump said in his joint session, and how he is dealing with health and education. And Stacy is a Twin Cities playwright. She has one of her works is an award-winning play, Autistic License. It's an autobiographical. I can't even say it. It's an autobiography. How's that?
That's good.
Autobiographical telling of Stacy's family experience raising a child with autism and how it impacted their lives. And she's quoted as saying all the challenges and joys that go in along with that experience. Thank you for joining me.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
So in health and education, there was a whole series of things that Trump shared. It was a little bit of a bit player in his address, but it was still prominent. A few of the mentions came up, were related in his speech, were the withdrawal from the corrupt World Health Organization. And he did an executive order announcing that the withdrawal on his first day of office. One of my favorite ones was talking about transgender mice versus the transgenic mice. Transgenic mice have been changed in a special way. They have a new gene, but really allows them to be able to be studied for cancer and Alzheimer's. And he did not know the difference between transgenic and transgender, which is kind of sad. Talked about fentanyl, talked about toxins in the environment. And while he was talking about toxins in the environment, he was also making sure that some litigation that was going on down in Louisiana with the plastics, it was contaminating and carcinogenic, was getting dropped. So lots of odd things. One of the things that I really want to dig into is his statements about autism. Trump noted that not long ago, you can't even believe these numbers, 1 in 10,000 children had autism, and now it's 1 in 36. There's something wrong, and we're going to find out what it is. And there's nobody better than Bobby and all the people working with him to figure out what's going on. And on the autism numbers, the president appears to cite figures from the CDC's autism monitoring studies, which estimated around 1 in 36 children had autism spectrum disorder, the ASD, in 2020, up from 150 in 2000. But according to the CBS News, that article had the rise in estimates was not stemming from the increase in cases, but rather it's unclear if it was due to maybe changes in the clinical definition.
Yeah.
So, Stacy.
Yeah. Well, this whole thing about the rising autism it's nothing new. And, there may be some incidents of increased autism, but, when we were growing up, when I was growing up in the 60s and the 70s, 100 years ago, nobody knew what it was. I mean, it was defined by the, what people think of as the most involved cases, nonverbal kids who are, self-injurious and
had challenges.
Yes. And we now all know that we all went to school with individuals that, were just labeled peculiar or weird or nerdy. There was no what is now known as type A autism, or was known as Asperger's. Didn't exist. And those individuals didn't get a diagnosis, and they all came into the umbrella. And so, of course, that increases numbers, right? In addition to that, it was believed that if a child made eye contact, they didn't have autism. In fact, when my son is 35 years old, so when he was being evaluated over 30 years ago, one of the individuals actually said that. They said he makes eye contact, so we know he's not autistic. So there was just myths and lack of knowledge about the disorder. So kids often got a diagnosis of mental retardation, and I did read a study somewhere where the rates of that diagnosis, a cognitive delay, um, actually dropped at the exact same rate that the autism diagnosis increased.
Hmm.
So just because you see an increase in numbers doesn't mean there's an increase in children who have it.
And Bobby's statement about vaccinations and his stand on that. Tell me about what your feelings are.
Well, all I can say to you is that if he had been given this appointment in government 10 years ago, I would have wept bitterly. I have been pushing against everything he's been saying for over 20 years now. The reason I haven't wept bitterly is because I just have no more tears to shed over this.
Mhm.
But he is, you know, needless to say, an extremely dangerous individual with no knowledge or background in this. And I think what's really important to point out is that people who are talking about individuals with autism who are supposedly vaccine injured, is that there's a real it's a bigotry against these individuals. I mean, the focus is put on their challenges. And you quoted me about the joys and challenges, and not in any of gifts that these individuals may bring. So Jordy walked at 8 months, and he began to all out read at 18 months. Nobody wants to talk about
the gifts,
but they don't also want to explain how a vaccine would make you gifted and talented. They ignore this piece. So if somebody only focused on your challenges or my challenges and didn't talk about, the things that we excel at, how would we all look to the world? So their illustration of what autism is not correct by that matter, and it's
becomes
quite
the
biased.
villain.
Yeah, it's quite biased. It's quite hateful, actually, and no one wants to be reminded that Steven Spielberg has an autism diagnosis. And so if vaccines create that kind of genius, maybe we should all be lining up really quick.
And Bill Gates as well.
Exactly. Oh, it's endless. There's an endless list. So it's it's a misrepresentation of the condition,
The cause of the condition.
yes, and it's clearly the data shows that it happens in the womb. And one of my favorite studies, and I think it's been ongoing. It's been ongoing for years, but now that so many parents walk around with cell phones and everybody's got a cell phone, they document every moment of their child's birth. So they say, my kid went in for a vaccination and then he stopped, he's not normal, he changed or whatever. So researchers are able to say, can we look at your home movies?
Yeah.
And in doing that, they found, oh, it's there. Oh, there it is there. And it was there long before the vaccine.
Sure.
But the MMR comes in at about 18 months, I believe. That's when speech typically kicks in. So it's one of those correlation causation things that the parent isn't noticing you know,
Until
yes.
it becomes
And why
too
would they?
broad.
Why
Yeah.
would they? And
Right.
they don't know the markers. I
Mhm.
mean, Jordy actually showed symptoms in the hospital, but we did not know what that was. He wouldn't blink. His eyebrows were up, you know, in his wide awake alert. The
Mhm.
nurses called them bright eyes when we were in there.
Mhm.
And I remember my father saying, none of our children were this alert.
Mhm.
Were our children this alert to
Mhm.
my mother? Because I think even he had a nagging sense. This is a little odd.
Mhm.
This baby is wide awake, you know?
Mhm.
The startle reflex in Jordy was off the charts. He couldn't tolerate an infant swing because his startle reflex was so big with it. So that's, you know, all signs that there were sensory things that were going on.
Way before any
Yeah,
vaccination.
yeah. And
Sure.
he, you know, and the walking at 8 months, I mean, full out run at 8
Mhm.
months. And people would stop us at the mall and go, how old is that baby? Yeah. And, you know, and then the reading at 18 months is really also very telling because reading is really his first language. So
Mhm.
when other children were speaking, he
He
was
was
reading.
reading.
Yes.
And
But
interpreting symbols.
yeah.
And the IEP,
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
that was something that benefited
Oh,
work. And Catherine, I know your son also benefited from IEPs.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And
And do
now,
we have to explain what an
yes,
IEP is?
yes, please
Yeah.
do.
So it's an individual education plan. And so when you come into the public school system and your child has a diagnosis, then you meet with the child's team, their teachers, their OT speech, anybody that's going to be involved with working with your child. And you create a plan that's individual to their needs. And it's a legal document and it has to be adhered to. And you meet yearly unless it needs a change. Then you make another meeting. And this is what you follow to help your child succeed as they can in the school system.
Go ahead.
It's a federally mandated law that requires that basically that there is a free, appropriate public education to all students, including the disabled. It's a federal law that then has to be enforced by schools on a state level. But it is something that falls under the education department.
Which is
Yep.
in question.
Yep.
Right. Section 04 is the law that requires the IEPs for disabled students. And part of that review process that was mentioned is not just to see how the student is doing, but to force local school districts to provide the resources. And during those meetings, you can challenge the schools and the officials in the schools to meet the standards that are set by the federal law. And when they don't, you have the power as an individual, as a parent, to say, there's a law here that requires you do something for my son because he's not, exceeding, he's not even close to meeting the requirements of, math or reading or some other subject matter. And that gives power to us as citizens to enforce that
Equality.
the goal of
Yeah.
the law that was created.
That every child has a right to an education and the least restrictive alternative. And I worked at Pacer Center for many years, which this is what they do. They help parents advocate for themselves and their children in the educational system. And I want to say, too, that it's kind of a misnomer that any child that's on an IEP or a 504 plan, which is sort of a shorter version of an IEP, a child might not need all that's involved in an IEP, is someone that is intellectually or cognitively low. It's a whole spectrum of children, and I work with these children. We have children that are beyond gifted and talented that need IEPs, that need 504s. Oftentimes, with high intelligence comes some
Challenges.
Yes, very much so. Gifted and talented is just as much of a special need as any special need you can imagine. education. And so the idea of cutting these programs, I mean, what an IEP does for a student is it allows them to be the best possible person they can be. So we have had students who've gone on who are now doing scientific research in PhD programs in Ivy League schools that were on IEPs, and we fought every day to get that kid through a school day. You know what I'm saying? And you have kids that maybe they didn't have the kind of giftedness that kid had, but now are working and contributing to society, and they're a beloved part of their community. They're not locked away in an institution or somewhere. They are actually productive human beings, and so this is key to a successful society.
With the dismantling of the education department, does that put IEPs in danger?
Yes.
Well, I would say yes. If they truly are attempting to dismantle the Department of Education, which was created by an act of Congress in 1979, that brought together that bill in 1979, various departments under the Department of Education, including enforcing civil rights, accrediting colleges, protecting individuals with disabilities through IEPs. Student loans such as Pell Grants, scholarships, work study programs. The dismantling of the education department would basically be eliminating all of those issues, basically all of those services and all of those protections. And I believe that the philosophy of the Trump regime is that duty will now fall to the state.
And that will be a mystery. And with that, I need to take a break again, but when we come back, we're going to continue the discussion about the legalities. What are the consequences, and what are things we can do with our legal system to fight this?
Award-winning singer-songwriter Galen Lee and master storyteller Kevin Kling bring you Invisible Fences, a musical fable blending song and story in a powerful celebration of disability culture. After their sold-out run in 2023, they're back for 2 weeks only at Open Eye Theater March 6th through the 15th. As one audience member said, it was a creative, delightful, entertaining, joyous production, totally original and enlightening. Don't miss out. Get your tickets now at openeyetheater.org.
Hi, everybody. This is Paul Metza, host of The Wall of Power Radio, going on almost 11 years every Saturday night at 6 p.m. on AM 950. Great new show this week with legendary booking agent Mike Kappas. Talks about his time booking people from Muddy Waters to John Lee Hooker to John Hammond, John Hyatt, and more. We get inside workings, how he started out in Eau Claire, made his way to San Francisco, booked over 14,000 shows. 6 p.m. Saturday night.
Hi, I'm Philip Anthony, host of the Downright Upright Show, airing right here on AM 950 Radio, Saturdays at 5 p.m. Join me as I dive into captivating conversations with people from all walks of life. As a proud member of the LGBTQ community, I celebrate diversity and beyond with unique stories that make us fantabulous. Please join me every Saturday at 5 p.m. or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hi, I'm Peter Solak.
And I'm Adam Ostrowski.
We are here at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces to talk about the joy of live fire cooking. Cooking over a live fire is the oldest and most basic form of cooking.
What's new is in the way fire is handled and its heat is managed.
It's easier to experience and enjoy the smell and taste of food cooked over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces sells and installs live fire grills, fire pits, and ovens. Let us help you experience the smell, the taste, the fun of cooking with fire.
Pizza was first made and is still best made in an open fire oven. The radiant and conductive heat of a live fire is unmatched for wood roasting and baking artisan breads too.
Come see the many ways you can cook over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces has over 35 working wood and gas units on display at the corner of East Franklin and Riverside Avenue in Minneapolis. More information at woodlandstoves.com. Find the fire that works for you. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
You're listening to AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
In these challenging times under the second Trump administration, reading can be a powerful tool to manage stress and anxiety. And Next Chapter booksellers can help. Their newest table features books designed to channel anxiety into meaningful action. From Noam Chomsky to Henry David Thoreau, it's a collection that invites you to reflect, learn, and take action during chaotic times. Explore the full list of titles at nextchapterbooksellers.com. That's Next Chapter Booksellers off Snelling and Grant, here to help keep your sanity.
Hello, I'm Todd Mickelson, host of a Satellite View podcast. It's hard to find clarity or focus here on the ground with the fire hose of issues and events. We go up high and look back on Earth from a satellite view, where we can gain our bearings and learn from the past to shoot for a better future. And have fun and laughs along the way. Go to am950radio.com, click the program's link, and find a satellite view with Todd Mickelson.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Tom Winston. For today, partly sunny with a high 50 degrees. For tonight, clear, low 30. And tomorrow, even better, sunny with a high 55. Nightingale's, your cozy, comfortable neighborhood bar and destination restaurant featuring delicious food and drinks. Offerings include the famous Nightingale burger and fries, ginger tamari chicken wings, duck pastrami Reuben. Takeout orders still available. Nightingale, mpls.com.
Welcome back to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. I'm Lori Fitz, your host, and we have been kicking off our series of radio shows that I'm calling You're Not Crazy, These Are Lies. And we've been doing it by looking at gaslighting, as well as looking at the joint session speech that Trump gave. And I've been reminding folks in every beginning of each segment, things to think about when it comes to gaslighting. And in this segment, I want to share the recommendations of how to deal with gaslighting. It says, assert your reality, calmly state your perspective, document incidences, record specific examples of the gaslighting behavior, and seek support. It says, talk to trusted friends, family members about what's happening. So I consider all of you listening to be my family members. This is our way to have a good conversation with people I trust about these issues and get us thinking and talking about it, because it's so easy just to get overwhelmed. And we can't talk about everything, but what we can talk about with some depth and understanding and compassion, and inspiring us hopefully to do a bit more, because we're making these connections. Joining me today has been Alvin Peters, Stacy Dinner-Levin, and Catherine McEnroe. Alvin practiced law for 40 years in Panama City, Florida, is still practicing law. He's also been the chair of his local Democratic Party for 10 years. Stacy is a Twin Cities playwright, and one of her most notable works is the award-winning play Autistic License. And she's also an educator with special needs youth in Hennepin County. And Catherine, who's going to be my main focus of interviewing in this third segment, is recently retired from 32 years practicing law. She spent the first 2 years of her career as a law clerk to a federal judge. And she then went into private practice as a litigator for 18 years. And she spent the last 10 years of her career in public service, prosecuting drug, property, and violent crimes for Hennepin County. I love having a prosecutor on our show today that can give us some insights, because we are facing a challenge in our rule of law. And I believe the only way that we're really going to be addressing these lies and what could potentially happen because of these lies in the dismantling of our democracy, the only way we can really face it is through law.
I believe you're right about that, Lori. It's certainly one of the most concrete things that's available to all citizens to combat the gaslighting that's going on. I think if you look at what Trump and Musk are doing, and Alvin will understand this, they have gone out and they've framed the issue. And from framing the issue, a lawyer then sets the stage for what reality is and then makes an argument from that point. And the way they framed their administration is that government is bad. Government is riddled with fraud. Government is mandating things that will harm you, such as immunizations, vaccinations, DEI, all these things that the government has done over the years are bad. And therefore, we are going to clean it up and efficiently eliminate those parts of the government that have been bad for you and where your tax money has been wasted. And Doge, yes, exactly. And they frame the issue that way so that the rest of what they're doing makes some logical sense to some people out there. And although typical Republican politics has always been less government is better, that is not what's happening here. What's happening here is the sort of demonization of various branches of government, the executive departments in particular, that have been created by Congress over the years, beginning with the State Department back in 1789. And each of these departments has an important function in the government, and they are attempting to eliminate them rapidly, starting with just pure eliminating the workforce by firing all of these people illegally. And that way they can quickly assert control over these various executive departments without interference by people who have participated in those agencies for years and years and know how they function. They can come in and say, oh my gosh, this post office is a disaster. We're going to privatize it.
And they want to privatize a lot.
That's their goal, is to eliminate these executive department functions like agriculture, commerce, education, energy, health and human services, the Interior Department, the Transportation Department, Veterans Affairs. They're dismantling these executive departments, and in some cases saying, we believe that this should be taken care of at the state level. So maybe the federal government will give money to the states for public education, but we're not going to have a Department of Education anymore at the federal level.
But we also heard just yesterday, I believe, someone saying to the effect of, we need to detox over our addiction to the government, and there'll be a period of change to get us to the point where
detoxification
and be able to be privatized. And that's the end goal, is privatization.
Correct. And I believe that the Trump-Musk regime and the people who are buying into the whole setup use catchphrases like that. And that makes it easier for people who aren't paying quite as close of attention to say, oh, well, detoxification is a good thing. We should detoxify things. Oh, fraud is another term that's been used widely and wildly by Doge and Musk and his people, that, oh my God, we're eliminating all this fraud. But in fact, there really is very little fraud in much of what they've done. And to go out and say, oh, we're going to just, create a department that is free to roam through all of the other executive departments.
With 19-year-olds.
Right, exactly. And with artificial intelligence programs to take over these executive departments. And I believe that Trump wants the litigation that has ensued, because he's used to litigating everything. He loves himself to litigate things. And what's happening is, unions and individuals and individual groups and state attorney generals are suing the Trump administration left and right for these various cuts that they're going through, which will have drastic impacts within the next 30 to 90 days even on the citizens of every state. And just yesterday, the 27 Democratic attorney generals sued the Trump administration for all of the terminations of probationary employees in the federal government, because there is a law that requires that states receive notice that that is going to happen if there's going to be, more than 50 people in any given state that are losing their job, which is clearly happening. And because it's the states who will pick up the consequences of those decisions to terminate, tens of thousands of federal employees, are going to need the safety net of state unemployment programs and job assistance programs, et cetera. And they were never notified. Of course they weren't. It happened instantaneously. And it's created chaos, and it's created a body of litigation that's working its way through.
But it takes time.
Various levels of, federal district courts, federal circuit courts of appeal. And he has even had one issue rise up to the level of U.S. Supreme Court last week, where he was the issue of eliminating all funding for USAID, which involves federal funding and grants that go to nonprofits all over the world.
That save lives.
Correct.
Save lives and prevent horrible consequences.
Consequences that can flow back even to our country. Handling diseases, et cetera.
But he's
abroad.
not, at this point, obeying the law.
No, he is not. The federal district courts have issued multiple orders on multiple issues, but many on this issue of funding USAID. And it has gone through this injunctive process, which involves getting, an immediate temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction saying you must pay this money out to these nonprofits. And that preliminary injunction has gone to the Circuit Court of Appeals that has said you must pay the money out to these nonprofits. And Trump has not done so.
Much like he has not paid people that did his services when he
Correct.
was a businessman. Just sort of like, I'm not gonna pay.
Yep.
Well, we only have about a minute left, and I'd love to have you share with the audience ideas that they can do. And one of them is, of course, our Constitution.
I do think it's important to know your rights. And most people don't take the time, if you're not a lawyer, to actually sit down and read the Constitution. But a lot of the issues that are coming up right now are really, truly violations of the Constitution. And I believe that people can feel more empowered about their citizenship and what's going on if they're informed. And I believe it's a short, easy to read document, and you're not crazy. Some of the things that are happening really are a violation of the Constitution. And just knowing that in your heart empowers people, I think.
And empowers people to have conversations like this. We can be overwhelmed and not even know what to say or what to think. But I'm hoping that our conversations that we'll be having on this series will inspire others to have conversations. Go out to your coffee shop, talk with your friends. Don't let this just happen, even though we're feeling overwhelmed. We can do something. And I want to thank all my guests today for bringing their brilliance. And I'm looking forward to having you all keep coming back and having our good discussions, and always having our friend Catherine share about what can we do, and from our favorite prosecutor.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Alvin. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Catherine.
All right.
Join us April 10 through 12 at the Capital Readiness Summit, where we're bridging the gap between investors, support organizations, and the entrepreneur community. In just 2 days, you'll make connections that could take you